The alternate Second World War brought about by Albert Einstein's meddling with the space-time continuum saw the Allied nations pitted against the Soviet Union for control over Western Europe. After years of conflict, the Allies emerged victorious and hoped that peace between them and the Soviet Union would last, thanks to the new premiership of one Alexander Romanov. During this short-lived peace, however, Romanov rebuilt the Soviet military, and later ignited the Third World War with his invasion of the United States. With their nuclear arsenal disabled by Romanov's psychic advisor Yuri, the US military was unable to stop the Soviet forces invading from the east, west, and south through Mexico. President Dugin and other high-ranking chief of staff had to lead the country from Canada due to the gains Soviet forces had made across the continental US, including the dangers posed by their psychic beacons. To secure aid from the European Council in their fight against the Union, President Dugin ordered Agent Tanya and an unnamed commander to help eliminate nuclear missile silos along the German-Polish border. With these silos eliminated, Germany's chancellor allowed the US access to their greatest scientific mind, Albert Einstein, who created a weapon system that could help counter Soviet forces.
These are plans for a prism tower. Your president, he has expressed great interest in its application.
Thanks, Doc.
The Prism Tower was the most powerful and advanced defense structure in the Allies' arsenal. The tower fired a concentrated beam of light at any approaching enemy ground units through one of 6 mirrors located at the top of the tower. These mirrors are attached to a rotating mechanism that keeps the tower charged. When the tower is about to fire, the mechanism stops rotating, and a surge of energy rises from the base of the tower to the top, with a beam of light reflected by one of its 6 mirrors towards the target. I'm not sure if this beam of light from the Prism Tower is technically a laser, as a laser is defined as being monochromatic, directional, and coherent. Monochromatic means that all the light produced by the laser is a single wavelength, such as red light, whereas white light, like in the Prism Tower, is a combination of all wavelengths in the light spectrum. Directional means that the beam of light has a low divergence. Light from conventional sources, such as a light bulb, spreads in all directions, but the intensity decreases rapidly as it moves further away from the source. Lasers, on the other hand, have a very small divergence, enabling them to maintain high beam intensities over long ranges. Coherent means that the waves of light from a laser are in phase with each other. Conventional light sources produce many wavelengths, which makes them incoherent. So, even if the white beam from the Prism Tower is a combination of 3 red, green, and blue lasers, it would not be considered coherent because each color has a different wavelength. While a single Prism Tower wasn't as powerful as a Soviet Tesla Tower, it had a higher rate of fire and slightly longer attack range. Most importantly though, multiple Prism Towers in close proximity to each other would link their generated beams, producing a single, more powerful beam of light, one that was fired by the tower closest to the targeted enemy unit. Prism Towers that linked their charge could only strike one unit at a time. Since Prism Towers could combine their beams, commanders were incentivized to build more than one, but more of these towers meant more power was needed to keep them running. A Prism Tower whose mirrors weren't rotating was a sign that it lacked sufficient power to function. Prism Towers were only effective against ground units, being unable to engage aircraft, which made them vulnerable to air attacks. Prism Towers were first used by the Americans during Operation Liberty. The Soviets had captured Washington, D.C. during their initial invasion of the United States. American forces managed to hold on to the Pentagon, though it wasn't safe for the country's generals to use it as a base of operations while Soviet forces still occupied the other side of the Potomac River. Thanks to Einstein providing the Americans with blueprints to construct Prism Towers, the garrison at the Pentagon was able to hold off Soviet forces attempting to destroy or capture the landmark. Utilizing reinforcements ferried down the Potomac River, the Americans were able to conduct a counteroffensive, enabling them to retake the capital. The Prism Towers impressed American generals, who wondered if such technology could be made mobile. Scientists and engineers were able to fulfill these wishes, creating the Prism tank.
Dioptic manifolds clear.
The Prism tank was a lightly armored but powerful siege unit. It had impressive range with its beam of light, which could easily kill infantry and bring base structures crumbling to the ground. Most importantly, the light beam launched from the Prism tank's cannon radiates from the target, hitting other nearby enemies. This unique function allows the vehicle to single-handedly destroy entire groups of clustered enemy units. However, the range of dispersal depends on how close the Prism tank is to its initial target. If left uncountered, a single platoon of Prism tanks could quickly demolish an enemy base. Concept designs of the Prism tank show the vehicle having a secondary machine gun, though the in-game unit doesn't make use of such a weapon. Because of its slow speed, rate of fire, and light armor, it was best for Allied commanders to provide their Prism tanks with other armored support. Prism tanks with elite and veteran crews had better knowledge of their Prism weapons' capabilities, enabling them to increase its strength and rate of fire. Prism tanks first saw action during Operation Free Gateway, the Americans' attempt to liberate St. Louis from Soviet occupation. After Agent Tanya successfully destroyed a psychic beacon that had mind-controlled the city's population, reinforcements arrived via the Mississippi River. Prism tanks were among the reinforcements, and the commander in charge of the operation used them to destroy the nearby Soviet base, freeing the city. The Soviets themselves were impressed with the Allies' new Prism weapons, and sought to reverse engineer the technology for their own use. The Soviets managed to capture a Prism tower at an American base on the west coast, bringing the knowledge they gained from the structure to a secret research facility hidden among some Mayan ruins in the Yucatan.
Apparently, the Soviets thought we wouldn't notice this research facility in the Yucatan. By these readings, we can see that they're trying to replicate Einstein's prism technology. Your destination is the ruined Mayan city of Tulum, near the Caribbean coast. We're paradropping a SEAL team to help you locate and destroy the facility. I think you're going to like these guys.
After making landfall, the SEAL team discovered a local village where a group of freedom fighters were imprisoned. After liberating the village, the rebels pledged to support the SEAL team. Infiltrating the nearby Soviet research facility, the SEALs discovered that a couple of the Mayan ruins weren't actual ruins, but instead, prism cannons. The Soviets could not be allowed to further their research on this technology, and so the prism cannons were either captured or destroyed by the Allied forces. Once this objective was achieved, the rest of the facility was destroyed, ensuring the Allies would maintain this advanced technology for themselves. Prism tanks were utilized during the final operation of the conflict, destroying a nuclear missile silo in the middle of Moscow. The Allies were later able to capture Premier Romanov during this operation, bringing the war to an end. Peace, however, would not last, as conflict between the Allies and Soviet Union would again ignite some time after the Allies successfully stopped Romanov's former advisor Yuri from using his psychic dominator devices to mind control the world. Not wanting to lose another war against the Allies, Soviet Colonel Anatoly Cherdenko, along with General Krukov and scientist Grigor Zelinsky, used their own newly created time machine to alter the space-time continuum. They traveled back to 1927 and got rid of Albert Einstein, believing that without him, the Allies would never gain the superior technology needed to defeat the Soviet Union. Though Einstein had been taken out of the picture, the Allies still acquired formidable weapon systems with which to fight the Soviets and the newly created Empire of the Rising Sun. The prism weapons of the previous Third World War timeline were replaced with spectrum weapon systems, the two most common of which were the Spectrum Tower and Mirage Tank. Unlike the prism weapons, the spectrum weapons were considered lasers, and largely developed by the Future Tech Corporation. Essentially a weaponized version of laser technology, the spectrum cannon focuses and amplifies light waves to form an extremely destructive, though short-ranged, burst of high-energy photons, which can cut through any known substance easily. What's more, the spectrum cannon's energy disperses from its targets, reflecting onto nearby forces, and making it still easier for just a small group of Mirage tanks to counter armored divisions many times their number. The The new Mirage tank was a combination of the original unit and the Prism tank of the previous iteration of the Third World War. It could camouflage itself into nearby objects such as trees, ambushing and destroying unsuspecting enemy units using its Spectrum cannon. The Mirage tank would have to divert power from the Spectrum cannon in order to use its gap generator to hide nearby friendly units. As mentioned, the range of this cannon was short, making it the Mirage tank's primary weakness, a weakness that was not shared by the Spectrum Tower. Like the original Prism Tower, the Spectrum Tower used mirrors with which to fire its beams from. The tower used 4 mirrors instead of 6, and there was no rotating mechanism to provide the electrical charge for the attack. One knew when the tower was about to fire due to the brightening lights located at the base and the coils at the middle section of the tower. The light beam emitted from the tower is the color violet, which is interesting considering that violet is the shortest wavelength, unlike red, which is the longest. Spectrum towers in close proximity could supercharge each other, increasing the firepower and recharge rate of the tower closest to an enemy target. By itself, a single Spectrum tower could eliminate almost any infantryman in a single strike. When supercharged by a couple of nearby towers, it could destroy all but the heaviest armored vehicles. Even better was that Spectrum towers could be constructed on platforms out at sea to protect aquatic infrastructure. Like the Mirage tanks, the beam from the Spectrum tower could disperse between enemy units, damaging those that were close to the original target. Spectrum towers were power-intensive structures, requiring a commander to heavily invest in power plants if they wanted to construct multiple towers. As for weaknesses, Spectrum towers could not attack air units, and they could be outranged by artillery units such as the Soviets' V-4 rocket launchers or the Empire's Wave Force artillery. The towers were also lightly armored, and could be quickly brought down. The Empire of the Rising Sun's entry into the war caught both the Soviet Union and Allies off guard. Imperial forces captured the Allied naval base at Gibraltar, while a floating fortress moved into the North Sea, blocking Soviet naval routes. These actions caused the Allies and Soviets to form a ceasefire agreement, committing their military forces in joint operations to defeat the Empire. The President of the United States, Howard T. Ackerman, warned the rest of the Allies that the Soviets couldn't be trusted, though his warnings were ignored.
Can't be trusted. They hate everything we stand for. Freedom, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, apple pie. Did I say freedom? Well, it's worth saying again.
The leaders of all the other Allied nations already agreed.
Not me. Not the U.S. of by God A. You're making a very big mistake, my friend. You mark my words.
Ackerman decided to take matters into his own hands by activating a superweapon at the Mount Rushmore monument, hidden inside the head of Theodore Roosevelt. Ackerman intended to use this weapon to destroy Moscow, which would ruin the pact the Allies had made with the Soviets. Loyalist Allied forces sent to Mount Rushmore destroyed a nearby communications tower, preventing Ackerman from remotely activating the superweapon. This would not deter the president, however, as he resolved to make his way toward Mount Rushmore to personally activate the weapon manually. The Allies quickly learned that destroying the Rushmore firebase that controlled the weapon would not be an easy task, as the heads of the monument were laser weapons in and of themselves. Whenever Ackerman reached a control center, it would activate a new head on Mount Rushmore. Allied ground units that got close to the monument would be targeted and destroyed by the lasers located in the eyes of Jefferson, Lincoln, and Washington. The only way to shut down these weapons was for the Loyalist Allied commanders to use engineers to capture each head's respective control nodes. The Allied commanders were also given access to construct their own Spectrum towers and Mirage tanks to complete the mission. With a large attack force, the Rushmore firebase was destroyed, preventing the superweapon from firing. As for Ackerman, the president would try to escape via his personal helicopter, though would be shot down by one of the opposing commanders, killing the president, but also preserving the pact between the Allies and Soviets. While the Allies later won the Third World War against the Soviet Union and Empire, they had to contend with uprisings against their occupational forces within the borders of these defeated powers. With the Allies distracted, The corporation known as Future Tech hired a commander to travel across the world to acquire technology from each of the three powers. This commander was rewarded with blueprints to construct Spectrum Towers after defeating Allied General Douglas Hill on an island arena in Central Africa. Future Tech would later give this commander Mirage tanks as a reward for defeating Allied General Lydia Winters in Chile. Einstein's Prism weapons were perhaps the most valuable in the Allies' arsenal during the Third World War, as they enabled the Allies to defend against Soviet aggression, and later go on the offensive in order to defeat the Union once and for all. Even with Premier Chernenko's interference in the timeline, the Allies, with the help of Future Tech, would develop equally powerful spectrum weapons that enabled them to defeat both the Soviet Union and Empire of the Rising Sun. Should these two nemeses rise up again, the Allies will have their spectrum weapons to hold the line, and counterattack their foes in future conflicts.